We're going in 3, 2, 1.
Yo, what up, everyone? Tay here. And today we have to, of course, talk about the Thunderbolts. Because unfortunately, I have had a super crazy busy week, and so I haven't even had a chance to talk about the Thunderbolts since I saw it last weekend. In fact, I actually saw it twice last weekend. I saw it on opening night, and then I went with some other friends to see it on Saturday night. And look, I know this isn't a review video, but I will just say I loved the movie. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. It's, not the best MCU movie ever made, but it's definitely one of the best MCU films since Avengers Endgame. And I would say it would probably be in like the top 15 of my, MCU movies. It honestly really reminded me of Phase 3 of the MCU. Right when the Infinity Saga was kind of at its peak and everything was feeling really cohesive and solid and everything was building towards Avengers Infinity War. And the fan base just had this building anticipation for what was coming. It gave me that vibe. And really my only complaint about the movie is I felt like it could have been just like 15 or 20 minutes longer. But also at the same time, that's kind of part of what made it good, is that it was very fast paced and it felt just really solid and cohesive in its own right. And I liked all of the characters. And also, as somebody who absolutely did not like what Marvel Studios did with Taskmaster in the Black Widow movie, I gotta admit that I loved the way they handled Taskmaster in this movie. And I'm sure there's some of you out there that totally disagree with me. I do think it's kind of messed up for the actress, Olga. I can't remember her last name. That does suck for her. That is pretty rough for her to think she's going to be a part of this new team franchise and then find out she's actually not going to be at all. She's getting axed early on in the movie. So that sucks for her, like, genuinely. But I'm a huge fan of Tony Master's Taskmaster in the comics. So I was really bummed at the way Marvel Studios handled the whole Taskmaster thing for what, in my opinion, was a cheap plot twist in the Black Widow movie. So when that moment happened early on in the movie in such a direct and blunt way, it almost felt like Marvel Studios were acknowledging that they mishandled that character, and this almost felt like an apology. Like, it really did. Like, I really feel like that's a big part of why they did that way. And look, me not liking what Marvel Studios did with Taskmaster in Black Widow has nothing to do with the fact that it was a gender swap. I don't have a problem with gender swaps. I think it depends on how they do it and which characters they do it with. And I actually like the gender swapped version of Ghost for the MCU. I actually think that works very well because Ghost, at least in my opinion, was not a character that had nearly as complex and interesting of a backstory as Tony Master's Taskmaster did. And I feel like what Marvel Studios did with Ghost in the MCU actually made her character more interesting than Ghost was in the comics. And that's really what bothered me about the whole Taskmaster thing in Black Widow, was they had this really great character from the comics who had absolutely nothing to do with the character they presented in the MCU. So yeah, I'll leave it at that with the whole Taskmaster thing, and I will also stop talking about my thoughts on the movie because, like I said, this is not a review video, but since I haven't talked about it yet, I figured I should at least let you guys know what I thought. So you guys let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments down below, because we actually have a bunch of other stuff we have to talk in this video regarding the Fantastic Four and Avengers Doomsday. Because really what this video is going to be about is how the Thunderbolts movie set up some really big stuff to happen in the Fantastic Four and Avengers Doomsday. And then a bit later in the video, I actually want to talk about some Phase 5 and Phase 6 leaks that came out last year, and how in those leaks, pretty much everything that was talked about regarding the Phase 5 projects has now been proven to be accurate. So what I want to do is, since all of the Phase 5 stuff in those leaks was accurate, I want to go back and look at what those leaks also had to say about Phase 6, specifically the Fantastic Four and Avengers Doomsday, and break all of that down. So we will get to that stuff a little bit later in the video, but first we have to talk about the Thunderbolts post-credit scenes, all the Avengers and new Avengers stuff, all that. So yeah, I will quit rambling so we can get into it. Just one last thing, we do have super thanks to get to at the end of the video, so make sure you watch until the end for those. And as always, remember that if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment on this video, that those really help out the channel a lot, and that I will read and respond to those in the next video. Alright, so let's jump right into talking about that post-credit scene and how the movie ends with the Thunderbolts becoming the official state-sponsored new Avengers team. And if you've read the comics, it seems pretty clear, at least in my opinion, that what Marvel Studios were setting up with that ending is likely going to be a Dark Avengers adaptation for the Thunderbolts sequel. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about the whole Dark Avengers plot that was set up, because that is a storyline that Marvel Studios is likely setting up for the next saga after the multiverse saga is over. And like I said in today's video, I want to stick more to talking about how the Thunderbolts movie ties into what will happen in Phase 6 with the Fantastic Four and Avengers Doomsday. But that is definitely something I do want to talk about very soon in a separate video. So yeah, I will talk about that, just not today. But anyways, so as we get to the end of the movie, we see Valentina introducing the Thunderbolts team to the press as the official new Avengers. And from there, the credits roll, and then in the post-credit scene, the story jumps forward by 14 months. And since the movie came out, it's been confirmed that this post-credit scene was just filmed around a month ago on the set of Avengers Doomsday, and that it was not directed by Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier, but that it was actually directed by the Russo brothers. And since the movie came out, everyone online has been speculating whether or not this scene may actually end up being a scene from Avengers Doomsday, similar to how the post-credit scene from the first Ant-Man movie ended up being an actual scene from Captain America Civil War. And this was actually just confirmed to be the case in a recent interview with Lewis Pullman, where he said that the Thunderbolts post-credit scene is in fact a scene from Avengers Doomsday.
So we do know you're in Doomsday, as are the Thunderbolts, the rest of your gang,
Yes.
which is awesome. You reunite with them.
Well, the only thing that I've read is what we've shot already, which is technically the teaser at the end of Thunderbolts. So technically that is a part of Doomsday. Like, that was shot by the Russo brothers.
Oh, it was. Oh, cool.
And as far as the MCU timeline goes, we know that the events of the Thunderbolts movie occur in early 2027, shortly after the events of Captain America 4 and Daredevil Born Again. But with the post-credit scene then jumping forward by 14 months, that would mean that the post-credit scene is taking place in early 2028. And with it being confirmed that this post-credit scene is likely a scene from Avengers Doomsday, that would seem to confirm that this is also when the events of Avengers Doomsday will take place, that Doomsday will occur in early 2028. Now, of course, the big moment in this post-credit scene is when the team are alerted to the Fantastic Four's interdimensional ship entering Earth's atmosphere. But there are also a ton of other details included in this scene that actually tell us a lot of information about where the MCU will be during the beginning of Avengers Doomsday. For instance, in the post-credit scene, just before the team see the Fantastic Four's ship, Yelena says, quote, "And now there is this huge space crisis and no one is telling us about it." And when she says that, it would be easy to assume that she's just talking about the Fantastic Four's ship closing in on Earth's atmosphere because that's what they see when they then go to the monitor. However, when she refers to this as a crisis, a space crisis, this makes it sound like this is something much bigger that's been happening in space for a while. And I think what this space crisis is probably a reference to is the incursions. Because when we saw the early stage of an incursion at the end of the Marvels, it wasn't depicted the same way as the incursions were in the comics. It was instead shown as a jump point out in space, breaking open into a portal to another universe. And we know from interviews with the Marvel's director Nia DaCosta that it was actually Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios who made the decision for what the incursions would look like in that movie. That, according to her, they had very specific notes for what they wanted the incursions to look like and how they wanted the incursions to be portrayed so that it would align with how they were shown in future projects. So considering that Kevin Feige wanted the incursions to be shown in that specific way, this also makes me think that there's a good chance that this is how the incursions will be portrayed in Avengers Doomsday. But my point is that when the incursion first starts to occur, that it could end up occurring out in space with a jump point breaking open, just like what we saw at the end of the Marvels. And from the sounds of it, it looks like a lot of the other heroes besides the new Avengers might already be on top of trying to stop this event. Because when Yelena mentions this huge space crisis, she says that no one else is talking to them about it. So this makes it sound like some of the other heroes on Earth are already aware of this space crisis and are trying to stop it, but that they're just not including the new Avengers in on what they're doing. But anyways, then another thing that was confirmed in the Thunderbolts post-credits was the status of Sam's Avengers team. Because after the end of Captain America Brave New World, it was clear that Sam's next step was to reassemble a new version of the Avengers in order to prepare for the multiversal catastrophe that the leader warned him about. However, what we didn't know by the end of Brave New World is if Sam would still be assembling that team when we got to Avengers Doomsday, or if he would already have this team put together. But because of the new Thunderbolts post-credit scene, we now know that Sam has already assembled his Avengers team, and that from the sounds of it, they've actually been active for a little while now. Because when Yelena asked the others, if Sam has already put together a team and they're called the Avengers, then who are the real Avengers? And in response, John Walker says that according to the internet, it's not them, implying that according to public opinion, they consider Sam's Avengers to be the true Avengers. And this is made very obvious when the movie's credits are rolling and we are seeing all of these different newspaper headlines calling the team the B Avengers and the heroes that no one asked for. And like I mentioned a minute ago, I think what this is setting up is a future storyline for a Dark Avengers project that could include the new Avengers as the state-sponsored Avengers team and Sam's Avengers as the illegal vigilante Avengers team. Now again, I don't want to get into a bunch of details regarding that right now, but what I will say is that I don't think that that whole angle will be a huge part of the plot for Avengers Doomsday, because I just don't think there will be enough time for it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that they will reference it and that the whole idea of there now being two Avengers teams will obviously come up and that will be a big part of the plot. But once everything starts to kick off with Doctor Doom and the incursions and the multiversal war, I just don't think there will be time to explore the complexities of Sam and Bucky's rocky relationship and what's happening with the two different teams and their status and who's the real Avengers team. I think the movie will be so fast-paced that that'll just kind of get put to the side and both teams will be very involved in the movie, but that the bigger political implications of there now being two Avengers teams won't be something that gets resolved until after the multiverse saga is over, likely in Phase 7. However, with there now being two Avengers teams, one area where this could get interesting is when it comes to Doctor Doom. Because, again, something else that we've heard in recent Avengers Doomsday leaks is that when Doctor Doom is first introduced to many of the heroes from the MCU 616 universe, that he won't come off as a villain, but that he will actually represent himself as a hero who is trying to save the multiverse by usurping Loki. And that some of the 616 heroes will end up joining Doom, while some of the other heroes won't trust him and will ultimately end up fighting against him. Now, if you've watched some of my past videos, you know that some of the characters that I think will end up working with Doom could include Wanda, Doctor Strange, and Clea. However, when it comes to which other characters could end up working with Doom and who won't, I think that maybe a key factor in that decision could end up being the Fantastic Four. Because we know that there's a good possibility that the whole reason that the Fantastic Four end up fleeing from their universe to the MCU 616 universe in the first place is because of the incursions, and that an incursion may be what destroy their universe. So I think what we might end up seeing with the Fantastic Four when they first arrive in Avengers Doomsday is that they could end up being the ones who arrive on Earth in order to warn the other heroes of the 616 universe about the incursions, sort of similar to how Bruce Banner came back to Earth at the beginning of Infinity War to warn the Avengers about Thanos.
Thanos is coming. He's coming.
And after seeing the Thunderbolts post-credit scene and seeing how the Fantastic Four will just be arriving on Earth 616 at the beginning of that movie, my first thought about this was that maybe what we could see happen in Avengers Doomsday is that the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom could both end up arriving in the 616 universe at some point early in the movie to warn the heroes of Earth about the coming multiversal catastrophes, and that some heroes could end up siding with the Fantastic Four, and that then some of the others could end up siding with Doctor Doom. Now, of course, if something like that does happen, then it is important to note that this will just be one aspect of the story, because we know that there's going to be so many different things going on in Avengers Doomsday besides what's just happening with the new Avengers and the Fantastic Four. There's everything that'll be happening with the multiversal war and the X-Men and all of that. Which, just real quick, speaking of the X-Men, there actually has been 2 updates that have dropped recently regarding the X-Men's role in the movie that I thought I would just mention real quick. And one thing that was just reported on is that supposedly the Russo brothers just recently filmed a new battle sequence for Avengers Doomsday between Magneto and Doctor Doom. And then we also got a smaller spoiler from actor Alan Cumming, who let it slip in a recent interview that his character, Nightcrawler, will be involved in a fight sequence with Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards. And, that's not like a huge spoiler, but what this does seem to imply is that if we do see a big multiversal war occurring between the X-Men of this other universe and the heroes of the MCU 616 universe, that the Fantastic Four will likely align with the Avengers and the heroes of the 616 universe against the X-Men. Now, in all likelihood, it'll probably be more complex than that because, like we've been talking about, it sounds like there could be multiple different teams and factions that align throughout these movies. That there could be characters that align with Doctor Doom, characters that align with the Fantastic Four, and then there's the X-Men. So yeah, there will be all sorts of different teams and factions, but yeah, I do think that the whole multiversal war angle between the 616 universe and the X-Men universe will definitely be a big plot point. But anyways, on that note, let's move on to the next section of the video, because we still have a lot to discuss regarding those past Phase 5 and Thunderbolts leaks that I wanted to talk about, because with those leaks now seemingly being confirmed as accurate, I figured we should also discuss what those leaks had to say about the different Phase 6 projects, specifically with Fantastic Four First Steps and Avengers 5. So let's get to that.
Are you the protectors of this world?
Yes, we are.
Your planet is now marked for death.
It's my fault. I stretched the bounds of space. And they hurt.
Alright, so sometimes when a new MCU project comes out, something I like to do is I will go through some of the old leaks that I have saved on my computer to see if any of those old leaks were correct about whatever new project came out, so that if they were, I can then go back and see what other projects those leakers also released information on. And so that's what I did after I saw the Thunderbolts last weekend. And I actually found a whole dump of Phase 5 and Phase 6 leaks that came out in early 2024 from a leaker who I believe is no longer active, but seemed to be almost completely accurate with everything they released, at least everything in this batch. Because this past leak dump I'm talking about included information on Deadpool and Wolverine, Daredevil Born Again, the Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, and Avengers 5. And when it came to everything they released on Daredevil, Agatha, and the Thunderbolts, they were 100% accurate on everything they released. And they were also about 90% accurate with what they released on Deadpool and Wolverine. So considering that these leaks were accurate on nearly everything with all of these Phase 5 projects, I wanted to go back and see what they had to say regarding the Fantastic Four and Avengers 5. And because these leaks came out, like almost a year and a half ago, they didn't include a ton of information on the Fantastic Four or Avengers 5. But what they did say about the Fantastic Four movie is that the movie would occur in the 1960s of an alternate universe where the team would already be established as heroes and famous celebrities. And at this point, we know that all of those details have now been confirmed to be accurate by the Fantastic Four trailers. But again, you have to remember that these leaks came out almost a year and a half ago in early 2024, way before any of this information had been officially released. So besides that, the leaks also said that Galactus would be the main villain of the movie, and that the main plot would revolve around Galactus and one of his heralds coming to Earth to consume the Fantastic Four's world, and that the movie would end with their Earth being destroyed and the Fantastic Four team being rescued by the TVA so that they can help with the coming multiversal catastrophe. Now, I should point out that these leaks also noted that this Fantastic Four information was based on the most recent draft of the script that was available at that time, and they said it's possible that some details could change as more updates were eventually made to the story. But the part of the leak I wanted to focus on was where it says that the movie will end with the Earth of their universe being destroyed at the end of the movie, and the Fantastic Four then being saved by the TVA. Because with the Fantastic Four being the last movie to come out before Avengers Doomsday, and with the team coming from a different universe, for a long time now there's been rumors and theories about exactly this happening. That the movie would end with the Fantastic Four's world being destroyed, and that however that happens would tie directly into setting up the plot for the upcoming Avengers movies. Now, if this does happen, then the two ways that seem the most likely for how their world could be destroyed is either from Galactus or from an incursion. And out of these two options, I feel like the incursion option is probably more likely, because that way the team could still technically succeed in defeating Galactus, and that maybe the incursion could then occur in the aftermath of that, with it being something that the team has no solution for. Because, as I talked about in one of my other recent videos, I just find it hard to believe that Marvel Studios would end their first official Fantastic Four movie in the MCU with the team losing altogether. But that said, I could still see the movie ending with an incursion, because this would allow Marvel Studios to technically have the team win against Galactus, but then ultimately still fail to save their world in the very end of the movie as a way to set up what's going to happen in Avengers Doomsday. Plus, another reason why I could see this happening is that having the Fantastic Four's world destroyed by an incursion could also play into the potential motivations behind Doctor Doom's story arc in the upcoming Avengers movies. Because for a long time now, there's been rumors and speculation that Doctor Doom will come from the same universe as the Fantastic Four. And of course, we have no way of knowing for sure if that will be the case, but I definitely think that that would make sense and would make for a bit of a more cohesive story arc for Doctor Doom, and that it would also make sense because it would connect Doctor Doom to the Fantastic Four, which is very important because the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom are so intrinsically linked in the comics. And recently, there's been this person on Reddit who lives in the UK near where Avengers Doomsday has been filming, who has been posting all sorts of updated set photos and set videos. And in one of the videos they released recently from the set of Avengers Doomsday, we see an actor wearing this old period piece attire walking into an old-fashioned house that is titled on set as the 60s house. And considering that we only see this actor from behind, there's been a lot of debate online as to who this actor is. But based on what we can see, in my opinion, to me, this looks like Robert Downey Jr. And if this is Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom walking into this house that's labeled on set as 60s house, then this could be a big hint at the possibility that Doctor Doom will come from the same universe as the Fantastic Four. And that's because we know that the Fantastic Four's universe is also set in the 1960s. So it just seems like it would be a pretty big coincidence if Doctor Doom also came from the 1960s, but he came from the 1960s of a totally different universe. I think it seems way more likely that if Doom is from the 60s, that he'll be from the same universe as the Fantastic Four. Now, it is also possible that this could be a misdirect, because after this set video started getting spread around online, whoever's running the set over on Avengers Doomsday started changing up the sign on the outer perimeter for the set of this house, and it went from being the 60s house to then being titled as the Iron Fist house, and then after that, the Luke Cage house. So obviously those are purposeful misdirects because they knew that somebody was taking photographs and video of that filming location. However, considering that this house and everything in this scene doesn't look modern and does look more old-fashioned, I think what's more likely is that the title for this set is 60s House, and then once that leaked online, they started changing it to throw people off the scent of what this filming location was truly called. And if Doom does come from the Fantastic Four's universe, and this universe does end up being destroyed by an incursion at some point at the end of the movie, then this could be a huge deal because this could be the whole impetus of what sets up Doctor Doom's backstory and why he's trying to save the multiverse in the first place. Because of course, if Doctor Doom witnesses his own universe being destroyed by an incursion, this could be what sets him down the path to trying to save the multiverse by becoming its god in order to ensure that this never happens again. And, one of the other reasons why I do think there is a strong possibility that Doom could come from this universe is because even though there isn't a whole lot of time to set up this connection between Doom and the Fantastic Four, I do still feel like Marvel Studios and the Russo brothers are still going to try to establish some kind of connection between Doom and the Fantastic Four, because like I said, it's such an integral part of those characters' story arcs in the comics, and also because of how important it is in the Secret Wars comics. And so having Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four come from the same universe, this would obviously be one of the best ways to build and establish that backstory. Because if Doom does come from the same universe, then this would likely mean that he does have some kind of past relationship with Reed Richards and the rest of the team, again, similar to their backstory in the comics. And look, I know that director Matt Shakman recently made some comments about Doctor Doom not being in the Fantastic Four movie, but that doesn't mean that he won't be referenced in the movie, and it also doesn't mean that he won't appear in a post-credit scene. Plus, another thing that we have to consider is that we are most likely going to see multiple flashbacks of Doctor Doom's origin story in Avengers Doomsday. That could very well be what's being filmed here with this 1960s house scene that we are seeing in these recent set videos. So if Doom does come from the same universe as the Fantastic Four, then it's always possible that Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby could also show up in some of those flashback scenes to further explore the history that Doom has with Reed and Sue in the past of the MCU. So yeah, I guess my bigger point is that just because Doom won't be involved in the core plot of Fantastic Four First Steps, that he could still be referenced in the movie and he could still show up in the post-credit scene, and that we could also see Doom and Reed's past explored in flashback sequences in Avengers Doomsday. Because another thing that I haven't even touched on is some of the other leaks we've seen that say that a big part of Doctor Doom's plan in both Doomsday and Secret Wars will be to use the reality warping powers of Franklin Richards as a part of his bigger plan to rule the multiverse and create a new singular timeline. Because if you don't know, in the comics, Franklin Richards is one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe and has the power to actually construct new universes. And apparently this is going to play a big role in the plot of Fantastic Four First Steps and could be what draws Galactus to the Earth of this universe in the first place. But anyways, enough about the Fantastic Four. Now let's talk about what these past leaks said about the upcoming Avengers movies. And because these leaks are a bit older, there wasn't a ton of details on the Avengers films. But what they did say is that anchor beans will end up being a very important concept in these movies, and that Peter Parker would end up being the chosen one from the 616 universe. And again, you have to remember that these leaks dropped like 8 months before the concept of anchor beans was even revealed in Deadpool and Wolverine. So the fact that this is mentioned in these old leaks definitely made me take notice. And ever since the concept of anchor beans was introduced in Deadpool and Wolverine, there's been a lot of theories online about who would be the anchor bean of the MCU 616 universe. And by far the top theory has been that it will be Peter Parker. And it is important to note that these leaks also came out before Marvel Studios announced that Avengers 5 was changing from Kang Dynasty to Avengers Doomsday. So when it comes to the leaks on the Avengers films, we definitely have to take these with a huge grain of salt. But if Peter does turn out to be another anchor bean of the 616 universe, then this could tie into some of the other past rumors we've heard about the upcoming Avengers films. Because something we've heard in past scoops is that Peter Parker could end up being a key part of Doctor Doom's plan, and that Doom will need Peter on his side in Avengers Doomsday in order for him to be successful at taking over the multiverse. And at this point, a lot of people are wondering if Tom Holland is even going to appear in Avengers Doomsday at all, because his schedule is so busy and everything with the timeline of Phase 6 is kind of still up in the air. But I think he probably will be in Avengers Doomsday, because he's such a big character, it's hard for me to imagine he wouldn't be. Plus, I'm pretty sure it's a part of Sony and Disney's contract that he's contractually obligated to appear in the Avengers films. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. But regardless of all of that, going back to the whole idea of how anchor beans could fit into the plot of Avengers Doomsday, if Doctor Doom's plan is to shred the multiverse down into just one singular timeline and recreate the 616 universe into that timeline so it's the only reality left in existence, then maybe he would need the anchor bean of the 616 universe in order to make that plan work, because without an anchor bean, the universe would just die and be destroyed, like all the other universes that lose their anchor bean. So if it turns out that Peter Parker is the anchor bean of the 616 universe, then maybe that could tie into some of these other rumors we've heard about Peter being a key element in Doom's plan, and it could all tie together that way. And I mean, this is just loose speculation, but another thing we were hearing a lot of scoops and rumors about around this same time a year ago is that anchor beans would play a big role in the TVA's plans in Avengers Doomsday as well, and that the TVA would be saving anchor beans from dying universes across the multiverse in order to help build their multiversal Avengers army to help protect Loki. Now, I'm not going to get into all of that again because we did just talk about that in the last video. But yeah, just another thing worth mentioning, especially considering that one of the other things these leaks said about Fantastic Four First Steps is that the Fantastic Four would actually end up being saved by the TVA at the end of the movie. But yeah, that's what these past leaks said about Fantastic Four and Avengers Doomsday. There was also a little bit more included about how the MCU would have a soft reboot or a reset at the end of Avengers Secret Wars, and how that would basically lead to an updated version of the MCU 616 universe that's basically the same, but includes mutants in the Fantastic Four and a few other small changes. Which, that stuff we've talked about before, so we don't really need to get into that. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's always fun to go back and look at these leaks and see what lines up. And considering that, like I said, this batch of leaks got like 95% of everything they said about Phase 5 correct, I thought it was worth it to go back and see what it said about these Phase 6 projects. But anyways, let's wrap this thing up at this point because I think we've been going on long enough. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did and you want to support the channel, you can leave a like or maybe even share the video with any nerdy friends you might have out there in the ether that might enjoy it. And remember to check out any of the other videos you may have missed, linked in the description down below. However, don't go anywhere just yet because we do still have super thanks questions to get to.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, so let's jump into these super thanks, and we just have a few today. And to start off, first we have two $5 ones from Gator Chris and Blackfire Warrior. As always, thank you very much to both of you guys. Then we also have 10 from Davo1981. And this one says, "Hey Tay, you asked who we think can show up. Well, what about Iron Man? Especially on a soft rebuild, why not get a new Iron Man? Once Doom is defeated, the new Iron Man can take over the role. Thanks." And, yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Iron Man. We have heard recent rumors saying that not only is Robert Downey Jr. going to appear as Doctor Doom in the upcoming Avengers movies, but that he could also appear as different Tony Stark variants or different Iron Man variants. But regardless of that, we have heard rumors about Tony Stark or Iron Man somehow being reborn once the multiverse is reset with the soft reboot of the MCU at the end of Secret Wars. Now, who knows if that'll happen, and if it does happen, who knows who will play Iron Man, if it'll be Robert Downey Jr. returning, or if it would be a new actor, as just a completely new version of Tony Stark for the 616 universe. But, it is one of those things that maybe we could see happen. And it's something I'm kind of conflicted about because on one hand, I feel like bringing back Tony Stark, especially if it was Robert Downey Jr., would take away from the impact of his death in Avengers Endgame. But at the same time, I really wouldn't want to see somebody else play Tony Stark. I would want to see Robert Downey Jr. play the role. So it would be awesome for him to return, but it would definitely lessen the impact of his death in Avengers Endgame. So yeah, who knows what'll happen, but I wouldn't rule it out. And then the last one we have is from Tubity, and this one says, "Hey Tay, love your videos. Do you think we could be heading towards a saga post-Secret Wars of primarily team-up movies? In addition to the solo films not performing as well, with exceptions, the groundwork has been laid for multiple teams. The Avengers, Thunderbolts, Young Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Midnight Suns, Guardians of the Galaxy, Defenders, etc. It could be a great way to continue the stories of characters who likely won't have another solo film, such as Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Captain Marvel, while characters like Thor, Doctor Strange, and Black Panther could carry on solo. Keep up the great work. Even after my MCU interest has faded post-Endgame, I always jump to watch your latest videos." Awesome, thanks dude, appreciate that. And yeah, when it comes to the movies moving forward into the next saga after the multiverse saga is over, I think it'll probably be like 50-50. 50% team movies and 50% solo films. Or, roughly that. Because, the solo movies are important. You need the smaller solo films to help build up to those team-up movies and make them feel more special. If we just have team-up movies, then they start to lose their impact. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Tobitty. Really appreciate it. And thank you to the rest of you guys, Blackfire Warrior, Chris, Dave. Appreciate all of you. And to all of you watching, remember that if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment on this video, that those really help out the channel a lot, and that I will read and respond to those in the next video. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Let me know what you thought about Thunderbolts and that crazy post-credit scene in the comments down below. And if you like this video, please leave a like or share the video. That always helps out a lot in the constant battle with the YouTube overlords. And yeah, check back soon because I am working on the next one.